If you have multiple roommates, if you don't have multiple fridges, you've got to be sharing space. You've got to be, people are drinking people's milk. I know that that's happening, whatever. Unless
It better not
unless
be.
it's on lockdown.
Oh,
You'll find out in the group chat. That's how you'll find out.
whoever drank my milk.
Whoever.
This is me.
That's
I'd better
Kasie.
give you 25 cents.
All right, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of The Boundless Show. This is Lisa Anderson here with you. And as I often do, I'm going to preview what is coming up on the show. So later on for our inbox, someone wants to know, how can you form deeper relationships after college in a world that is disconnected, especially by technology? So the way that we have moved in that direction, I'm going to weigh in on that question. And then for our culture segment, Dr. Catherine Wheeler is a former abortion doctor. She is here to share part of her story, including how she became a pro-life advocate. So really cool turnaround, and also some great stats on what it looks like to have a conversation with people who are just making arguments about, like, you cannot care for babies and care for women. She would disagree. All right, here we are for our roundtable. And I have got three great folks here at the table. I have Kasie, Jeff, and Georgia. Hey, guys.
Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Good to see y'all. So this is fun. Everyone, knows Georgia because she's been on a lot of shows.
It's an honor.
Yeah, exactly. Jeff is a personal trainer here in town who actually is currently my personal trainer. So if you guys are super intimidated by how fit I am, that's why. So I have to give credit to
Jeff
him.
to thank.
It is, it's just how it goes.
Well said.
And then Kasie is an HR pro who has done professional development for the entire world at this point. So that's so exciting.
Ooh,
Yes,
intriguing.
lots of fun.
Okay. But in your other lives, you guys have and are dealing with living in a roommate scenario. Okay. So young adults living with roommates. I think almost at this point in time, it's almost necessary for most people to have roommates, especially depending on what city you live in, what market you're in, because housing is outrageous. I mean, this idea that our parents and grandparents promised us that if we just have jobs, we can buy homes and second vacation homes and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, all a
Georgia's
lie.
already
That's a
loving it.
fantasy
degree.
world.
That'll
That's
be,
a
I guess,
fantasy
another
world.
conversation that we have about
About student loans.
where are everyone's vacation homes located.
Yes.
I love Hawaii.
Yes.
Okay, so we all have, I have a roommate, actually. We all have and or have had roommates. And so we're going to talk about how to do the roommate thing successfully, assuming that many of us have done it unsuccessfully. Or
Yeah, I was
maybe
gonna
that's
say,
just me.
Are you
I
going to
don't
share
know.
with us how to do it
I know.
successfully?
I don't know. We'll see how this goes. But so first up, just give us a little broad brush idea of your roommate situation, past and present. Like, how many roommates do you currently have? How long have you lived with roommates overall? What has this scenario looked like for you? Kasie, why don't you begin?
Well, my original roommates were my siblings.
Okay.
So I had two sisters that I shared a room with growing up, which prepared me for now my current situation of 4 roommates.
What, 5 total?
So there are 5 of
Oh
us
my goodness.
girls who are in our 20s and 30s
Okay.
who live in a house. And yeah, that's I think I've been living there 5 years at this point.
Okay.
And it's been really good. There have been some issues that have come up and roommates that have moved in, moved out. So it's a constant revolving door.
Okay. So how long have you been in this situation with this crew?
5 years.
Oh, you're 5 years.
Yes.
Okay. And then, but people have come and gone in that time.
Yep, exactly. I've probably gone through 4 or 5 roommates
Okay.
in that time,
Yeah. No, that's
like
good.
rotating in and out. Yeah.
Okay. Jeff, how about you?
Well, I wasn't even thinking about talking about siblings. I only had one sister, but I would say that politely so, she probably prepared me very well for many other roommates down the
As
line.
sisters would do.
Yes.
Okay.
I currently live with 4.
Wow. Okay.
In this house, I've had 5 total, not entirely, but at once.
Okay.
I've had over 50
Oh,
in my entire life. I'm
Roommates?
37.
You're like a roommate
I'm
expert.
37. Yes, I do. This is why
Wow.
we were joking about, Lisa and I were joking about this during one of our sessions, and I was like, I could add a lot to this conversation.
Yeah.
So,
yes. And there's been a
yeah.
gaggle of folks. But just to clarify, you're not currently in the same home that Kasie is.
Yeah, you're not one of
to
my
clarify,
five.
yeah, yes,
Not one of the roommates.
yes, we are not.
Exactly.
But yeah, I know for certain it's 52 as of
Okay.
a month ago.
Wow.
I think it's 54 or 5.
Oh, my
There's
goodness.
there's a couple. There were so many, it was hard to keep track.
The math
But,
is so hard on that.
I-
How do you?
how do you?
Well, there's a small chunk where so much happened in the house that I'm currently in just this 8 years and a third or quarter of a year. I think it's like 27
Oh my.
or 6 or something roommates just in that chunk. So that's why there's like a couple.
You know how
like,
they say maybe the problem is you.
Oh,
Just kidding.
right.
And he's
right
not even
to the
counting
point.
his cat and other
Yes,
pets
oh,
that
and
have been-
Forrest would make it 6.
Okay. Forrest the cat.
Yes.
And there have been other pets that have come and gone.
Yeah,
So,
actually, one of the newest roommates has a cat named Bella,
okay.
Oh,
so
Aw.
they can play together, which is nice.
Okay, that's
But-
good. All right, Georgia, how about you?
Okay, well, I feel like I have the least experience unless you count your siblings. But I lived in a sorority house, so if you want to count the 90
Okay.
girls that were all in that house and the lived in shared spaces, that was that. And then now I have 2 roommates, and then I've had 2 other roommates that I lived with here in the Springs, but we have since moved on and out just due to different things and like new jobs and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I would say I've had a number of roommate iterations. I'm probably the only one who had roommates and then actually lived 12 years by myself, which was blissful. And then I went back into the roommate fray, including bringing my mom in to live with me. And so there were all many dynamics to that too. But I currently have a roommate. So just one at this point, and no pets. So anyway, okay, so that's good to know. You guys, we've all kind of been there, done that. So let's talk about, how about the ladies start by talking about, are there unique challenges to living with women in particular? And let's just say kindly that, maybe the problem is you. I don't know. Let's not name any names.
Oh wait, no.
Maybe don't name any names of current and past roommates and stuff. But what does it look like? What are some of the challenges that you think are pretty unique? Is it like a mirror on yourself, or do you really see personality differences? What would be some of the biggest things?
Wow. I don't feel like I've had too many roommate, clashes as far as, how personalities go. I will say that having lived with 2 people that were introverted, both in college and outside of college, I think that was just difficult in that because I'm very extroverted. I was never in the house or in the room, if it were, because one of them was when I was in the sorority house, so I was never in our room in the house. And so I think that caused problems just because I enjoyed being out and doing stuff, and those certain roommates enjoy having time at home, and so they're like, why are you never home? Why don't you want to hang out with me? And I'm like, well, it's not that I don't want to hang out with you, but I have plans, and you can come to those plans, but I'm going to go do those things. So I think that's the only real, I feel like difference, but I don't think that pertains just to women. I think, if you have introverted bros, then you might deal with that as well.
Okay.
But I think that's the biggest thing I've seen, but I don't really think that pertains specifically to women.
We'll have to see if Jeff says that the guys are like, why don't you want to hang out with me? We'll see if that dynamic plays.
They
there, but-
moved out because they couldn't get
They couldn't get enough time with you.
Yes, yeah.
Exactly. They
just
didn't
wanted
want
to
to live
see
with
you
the other
more.
50 people. That's why. Okay,
Yeah.
Kasie, how about you?
Well,
Anything that's cropped up?
I do think it's been more of an age differential. That was a problem, not as much of female personalities, but really one of our roommates, she had moved in and it was for her first time moving out of her parents' house. And I think she was 23, 24, and she was just trying to figure out herself. And the rest of us were a little bit older, and we were like, we know what we're doing. We know who we are, and we don't need to be your best friend. And she said, well, I want to be your best friend, and I want to really pour out my heart to you all day, every day. So speaking of the introvert-extrovert thing, we just kind of had some differences in how we would approach certain situations. For instance, she would have guys over and they would be in her room until maybe 2 a.m. And part of our roommate agreement is that guys can't be in our own bedrooms. We just have a very specific Christian roommate contract. Are you surprised because I'm in HR, so we have contracts?
Good night.
But in general, it was just I had to confront her and say, hey, this isn't actually not how we do things in this house, and we want to honor the Lord, even though this is I know you're trying to figure things out and who you are outside of your parents' authority, but we do have standards and we don't want to feel uncomfortable or make other people feel uncomfortable. So that was more of I think a maturity difference. But then we've also been very clear that just because we live together does not mean we have to be best friends. Mm-hmm. Like we can hang out together, but we want to be respectful of each other, and sometimes there's conflict, and we just have to make sure we're not hurting each other's feelings. And you think I'm your best friend when I'm hanging out with not my actual friends. You're still my friend. But we had to have a lot of clarifying conversations about that specifically and what the relationship looks like.
Yeah. Okay. I know I've mentioned this on the show before. I decided a long time ago that I either had to live by myself or do multiple roommates, because I had a situation straight out of college where I had a roommate who basically came home every night and griped about every situation and person in her life. And I became, when you don't have that buffer, I was just like her stand-in therapist of like, let me tell you why my parents are so lame and why my boss is so lame and whatever. So I finally had to have that conversation with her. And I'm not sure, again, like Kasie said, if that's necessarily a gender thing, but it wore on me because I wanted to be a good listener and I wanted to be that friend. And we were friends from previous season and stuff. So it just got awkward really fast. And then I went from there into a house with 3 other women. And it was great because we were all different personalities and no one felt like they had the burden of like, I'm the listener in this crew and all that kind of stuff. So, all right, Jeff, how about you? What's unique about your situation and living in particular with guys? Like what have you had to keep in mind?
Well, the positive part about living with all guys is we kind of often operate as like passing ships in the night and stuff in some ways. Like we end up all having some deeper friendship. So some of these guys that are currently there I've known for a while. The last group that I kind of just left was there for 3 years almost entirely. That was a lot of fun. That was probably the closest I was to any like group outside of maybe college. Yeah. But we don't necessarily go deeply into a lot of things until like very certain moments. You know, it's kind of like we're just doing our thing, and like mornings, literally, hey.
Dude, bros.
Like it's and sometimes there'll be like 4 of us in the room. The good part about some of the previous 4 or 5 years is almost every one of us has been a runner. So there's times we all did the same like morning run together or something like that. Okay. And
so commonality.
Like, what about that is good?
That's great.
Okay. That sounds
common interest.
Yes. But it actually was really enjoyable because then our conversations were pretty cohesive. We talked about the majority of the same things, and ironically, that group, I was the only Christian of the 5.
Wow.
And I was the only conservative as well, so that made things very interesting.
Conversations.
Yeah, but because we had the running part, and that just naturally brought us together very simply.
Okay, that's
it was just easy.
Yeah. Okay, so what would you guys say? Like, let's just get into some straight up advice here. So people are maybe in transition, maybe they're moving, they know they have to get roommates or they're looking for roommates. What are conversations that have to happen on the front end? Like, what would you say you need to find out about a person before, other than can they pay the rent? Let's assume that there's
the first thing. I was like, let's see where the job situation is.
Here's the deal. Well, but what are some things that you need to know about this person before you're willing to share a roof with them?
Well, Lisa, one of our first questions is how do you handle conflict, and how do you communicate with people and express yourself in that way? Because we've had a lot of times where people are passive aggressive, and so they think you're going to get it just by their behavior when they don't come out and say it. So that's actually part of we do an interview process with potential roommates.
Oh, wow.
Like I said, HR.
Yeah.
And that's one of our top questions is, what is your conflict style? How do you handle conflict? If a situation hypothetically were to happen where someone left dishes in the sink for a week, what would you do? So we kind of try and play out real scenarios and figure out if they're willing to have the conversation, because I think the willingness is the first thing we're looking for.
That's good.
Yeah, when I first moved here, I had to move here like pretty quickly, so I had 2 weeks to get out here and have a place to live. And so I asked questions of like, do you guys like to hang out, and like, you know, those kind of things, but I didn't ask about conflict. And so when conflict arose, it became really difficult, because there was me and this one girl who got really close, and then our third roommate, anytime conflict arose, was very passive aggressive, and it became like, just like felt like we were walking on eggshells all the time, and just did not feel kind of safe in our own home. And so we were like, when we ended up leaving that house together, we interviewed one of my now roommates, and the first thing we asked was about, what's your conflict style? And we straight up asked, we were like, if you are upset with one of us, are you going to leave notes on our door? Because we were like, because if you will, we don't want that, because we already did that. And it was not cool to come home to that, you know? So I think, yeah.
It's just a wallpaper.
Yeah, so I think it was like just being able to just straight up ask those things, because I think it's better to just say that up front, like what you're willing to put up with and what you're not. Like, I think it's okay if you're like, if it takes you a second to gather your thoughts and what you're feeling, and then you can come and present it to us, that's one thing. But to be passive aggressive about it, that was something that, like, me and this other roommate, we were just straight up when we were interviewing other girls. We were like, yeah, sorry. So like, this is a fear of ours, and you know, we just want to know where you're at with that.
Okay.
I had one roommate who we had a group chat, and she would message whoever didn't vacuum, and I'd be like, own up to it, like in the group chat. Yeah, that's me. But like, you knew it was me. You just couldn't address me one-on-one either. Yeah. So that's a different dynamic, having multiple roommates versus one, where they would just be like in the passive aggressive, whoever did this. Yes. And you're like, yeah, sorry.
That's funny. Jeff, how about you?
Well, with the many different roommates that I alluded to earlier, I've had an assortment of every type of scenario where I learned probably the most important lesson was looking into myself along the way, like to kind of allude to some of the things that have been said. Guys don't like to talk about stuff often. What? Like, so like sending, yeah, wait, is it really?
Weird.
So like, I almost laughed as you girls were talking, because I was, you know, like these previous conversations, like guys just kind of assume, and for the most part it works out okay, because we'll kind of just usually address something pretty directly and not necessarily like angrily. It'll just be like, hey dude, just make sure you do this. You know, and stuff like that. It doesn't always go that way, but I wasn't good at that in the beginning. Okay. I was too passive because of how my family dynamic was growing up. And it was just kind of like, oh, we just won't really say anything until like mom explodes or something. No offense, mom, I love you. But anyway, so I learned that I had to, as I was naturally kind of becoming the leader, even before I was the property manager, and that would happen about 4 years ago and stuff, I had to speak up in ways, which obviously when you're listening, it's like, well, yeah, of course. But when you just have that was during the phase of multiple roommates. Like, I mean, I had probably 12 in like 2 years, you know, so there was constant different types of personalities. And it took me a while to learn that I wasn't leading well. I just kind of assumed everybody was thinking the same thing I was, because it was like, well, yeah, I've lived with like 20 guys, you have two, okay, like, yeah, just clean your dishes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good.
You can't
so
read
do you
minds.
guys, yes. Do you collectively have, or has this worked in the past or currently, like house rules, or how do you determine? I mean, even if you have multiple roommates, if you don't have multiple fridges, you've got to be sharing space. You've got to be, people are drinking people's milk. I know that that's happening, whatever. Unless it's on lockdown. You'll find out in the group chat. That's how you'll find out.
Whoever drank my milk.
That's me.
I'd better give you 25 cents.
So how do you kind of, head that off at the pass, or what does that look like as far as expectations in the home for common living?
Yeah. Well, Kasie has. I would love to see your contract. I think.
That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Our
Is
contract.
it that
Yes.
granular though? I mean,
No, we do have shelves in the fridge.
Okay.
We have shelves in the pantry. And we say if it's not on your own shelf, you mark it. This is getting very granular.
okay. So for the entire ham that
Yeah.
someone brings home, they're gonna have to share space.
We're like,
Condiments.
otherwise it's a free for all.
Condiments.
If you're like, if
Okay.
your name's not on it, it's kind of like a work fridge, honestly. I
Okay.
mean, there's 5 of us, so it's hard to separate it all. But even in respect to chores or just general house rules, it really is almost operating off of the treat others how you want to be treated, or when you notice something, you're just going to take care of it. We don't get into the contract doesn't specify. Although maybe we'll
Whose
add it.
mustard it is.
We try to treat each other like adults.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I think if you treat someone like an adult, they're going to step up, as long as you're having, which is why the conflict was so important for us, and being able to have conversations around it and just say, I expect this of you and you can expect the same thing from me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay. That's good.
I would agree. I think in my first living situation here, I think that's where a lot of it came from, is that there was these like really high expectations, and some people were living up to them and some people weren't. And so then it felt like even more hard to be like, well, why would I do my chore if you're not doing yours?
Mm-hmm.
And so in this situation that I'm in now, it's kind of like you said, Kasie, it's like, we're all adults here. And so if I see that the dishes need to be done, I will do them. Or if I see that the dishes need to be unloaded, I will do them. Or if we haven't vacuumed in a while, I'll just, and I just noticed that we all have that mindset. So it doesn't feel like we need to split it up, because we're all doing it. I think the only thing we really split up is the lawn, because that's like more of a hefty chore.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like, okay, well, I just unloaded the dishwasher, so I know that somebody else will load it. And that's just kind of, we just have this respect where we all want to do the right thing within the house and respect the house that we're in by taking care of it, and not have it be like, well, I noticed that you didn't do it on your turn. And it's like, no, we just do it. And I don't feel like we've had any conflicts with that.
You had better keep those roommates forever, because I was just telling Jeff earlier that I just had to tell my own roommate who has been sick the past few days. I hope you're well, Juliana. That she rearranged our living room and it just looks like an ICU ward. I mean, she's got the coffee table and the end tables like moved up around her, like she can't move like 6 inches because she's so ill. And there's like Kleenex and there's all kinds of just like mugs and stuff. And I'm like, those better go back to normal when you're done. So I'm just saying,
Yeah.
In
I am
other words,
biased.
my
I do love
expectation
my
is not there.
roommates. I think they're great, and we have
Well-
a blast together. So yeah,
one of my roommates
Nice
is my
plug.
sister, so
Yeah.
I have to love her, but
Oh.
also I love you, Maddie. For real.
That is good. Okay. So in our last couple minutes here, I do want to ask you, because I think this is like forward thinking, because we're all here at the table, we're all single. So based on what you have learned with your roommates, because I think this is a great training ground. Like I said, when I lived by myself, I was amazing. I got along with me just great. I
Amen.
felt like I was amazing. Okay. So I'm just saying, based on what you have learned with roommates, whether 2, 3, 4, or 54, like Jeff, if you get married, what will be your biggest issue in sharing space, do you think, moving forward? Or your biggest transition or life adjustment, you think, of what you will have to go through?
I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind is, well, I'm not currently sharing a bed with anybody.
No.
So, as obvious as that,
Not yet.
as
It's
that may
happened in
seem.
the past with roommates.
But
Just kidding.
right, yeah.
Not currently
So
sharing a
some
bed.
roommates, we didn't really talk about
was-
that, So obviously, like doing all the things that we've talked about, and then also then having that element that isn't currently there. That's the first thing that like I
Yeah.
guess shoots into my brain. As far as like the day-to-day stuff, I've learned to become very patient, knowing that, I mean, there's all multiple people, so we're talking about, potentially just a spouse, and unless we're eventually with kids, but obviously then kids are kids, so we're, we're leading in a very different way. But I think like looking ahead and going, okay, I know I can kind of handle a bunch of storms, and I feel like I'll be able to lead in that realm as well. I just think the transition of like doing all those things when you're not just in your own little bubble in your room, and you can't just like retreat to that immediately.
Yeah.
Or I mean, not that there's not more than one room in some cases, but I don't know,
Yeah.
I think that would be that would be an immediate like change that you're not really able to quantify or assess.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's like, here you are, and you're now operating all the other normal things, dishes, this, that, and the other. And
that's good.
Yeah.
I think having roommates has taught me that not everyone was raised to do the dishes a certain way, which was surprising to me. Saying like, okay, well, you're supposed to not load your pots and pans into the dishwasher. You should clean those by hand. They're like, I disagree. Okay. So that's been really helpful, having those conversations on, well, what's your perspective on it? And not just assuming that they want to make my life miserable, but that actually they were taught a different way. Or maybe they were never taught at all. And to have that grace for people, I do think that's been a huge blessing in disguise. Having so many roommates is just, even the chore situation, or to Jeff's point, I won't be able to hide in my room from them. From him when I get married. So that will be a big change between having roommates and getting married, because it's like right now I still have my own spot. I don't have to share my bedroom with my roommates, even though they're lovely people. I can shut them out of my world. So yeah, different things that I've learned and other things I'll have to still learn.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because actually we're assuming that not only can you not just run away to a different room, but ultimately you can't just find another roommate either. You're going to have to figure out how to work things out with this person eventually.
It's about a year or two on average.
Just like
people. So
exactly.
Just like my 54.
We don't want us to be statistics, y'all. I don't want you to be statistics, but there you go.
Is the question just like what we've learned that will make us good spouses? Is this me like saying to someone right now, live on the air, this is why Georgia would be a great spouse?
Well, or the flip side of that, which is what would be your biggest adjustment to married life, basically?
Okay, well, men, don't let this scare you away. But I think my biggest adjustment would honestly just be, like, sometimes if I've had a rough day at work, I come in and I need a moment to, like, kind of gather my thoughts, and I wear my heart on my sleeve. So unfortunately, sometimes my feelings inform my face, and sometimes my face looks, the way that I feel, which is maybe irritated or upset or tired. And so I think just adjusting and continue to learn how to inform my spouse and even my roommates of, like, hey, today was hard. I don't really have the capacity to explain to you why I'm feeling this way right now, but it's all going to be okay. And I think just learning to do that on the emotional side.
Yeah, good. And not shut down or...
and not like be like, upset or anything, but just being able to explain, like, I can't really get into why I feel the way I feel right now, but everything's okay. And I know that my face looks irritated, but it's all going to be okay. And I think, like, my roommates have given me a lot of grace in that. And I think all three of us have learned how to pick up on each other's feelings. And I think with a spouse, because you don't live with them beforehand, hopefully. Sorry to call you out, sisters and brothers, but hopefully you're not living with your spouse beforehand. And so I think that those are just things that, like, the immediacy of when you come home, that's going to be a new thing. And luckily with my roommates, like, we've all picked up on each other's, like, okay, I know so-and-so needs a moment to recap, or I know so-and-so needs to talk about this. And so that's just something you have to learn with your spouse, because, like, when you're dating, you can call them once you've gathered all your feelings and you talk to the girly pops. But when you're married, he is the girly pop. He's there.
He's there.
So,
Well, if you tell him the patience thing, like walking in the door, you might win his heart pretty quick, because that's a guy just wants a minute when he walks in the door.
Yeah,
too.
there you go.
That
I don't think any guy will be scared away by you wanting a minute. That's,
he'd be like,
I need a
cool,
moment.
I got another 2
God.
minutes.
I'm going to go do a quick run.
I was hoping you would want a minute.
Good. Well, great thoughts, you guys. This is fun. I give you officially my roommate stamp of approval. Boundless approved. So just so you know, anyone can hit up anyone at this table.
Should we all live together?
We can. We'll have to, Well,
sorry, not you, Jeff. We do not condone.
This is actually part of my interview process. Welcome to my house.
Yes.
Well, good thoughts, you guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us,
Yeah.
Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.